Hello, welcome back to Movie Husbands. Today we'll be reviewing Fallen Leaves. Directed by Aki Kaurismäki, Fallen Leaves is about two lonely people who meet each other by chance in the night and try to find the first love of their lives. It's a continuation of his Proletariat series. So Matt, what did you think of Fallen Leaves?
This was my first introduction to a Kaurismäki film, and all I could say about that is that I want to see more. I really enjoyed this movie. It was a simple movie. It was very short. It's a romantic comedy. It is so different from your Americanized version of romantic comedy.
Totally.
This movie is slow paced. It has a very dry humor and wit about it. One of the things I loved so much about it was the groundness it had because it was so disconnected from modern day electronics. This takes place very present day, and that is shown by the Ukraine war being broadcast over the radio. They're listening to it on old school radios in their homes, which I found very interesting. But one of the things I loved about that was that it really grounded the film. You felt like it was about conversation and happenstance. This movie follows our two main characters, Ansa and Holappa. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. And they are played by Alma Pöysti and Jussi Vatanen. I apologize if I'm getting those names wrong. They play these two main characters that go through a sense of meetings and losing each other, mostly because they keep losing their jobs.
I like so much how this film is almost like a fable. Like, it's a very simple story. You could almost imagine happenstance being like the big theme if this was a children's book or something, because these people find each other and lose each other and find each other and lose each other, both physically and emotionally throughout the film several times. And often when they try to find each other, they don't. But when they stop looking for each other, they end up finding each other again. Going to the deadpan comedy of it has a lot in common with a filmmaker that's really important to both of us, Rory Anderson, who made Songs from the Second Floor and a variety of existentialist comedies that tend to have a very deadpan sense of humor. I don't want to say this film follows in its footsteps exactly, because Kaurismäki predates Roy Anderson and Roy Anderson's exploration of that, but very much in the same vein.
Yeah, and you were talking about that comedic element briefly, but it reminded me of that scene that happens outside of the theater where they go on their, I guess, first date, you could say, and they go see a film. And there's some funny film references in that scene, which I don't want to spoil. But the crowd at the Lincoln Center when we saw this for New York Film Festival absolutely loved the scene.
Clearly like a Criterion Channel crowd.
Yeah.
We had it. They were eating up a Godard reference like no other, yeah.
But we were talking about that happenstance, and they come out of the theater and they decide to exchange numbers so they could see each other again, but they do not exchange names. She's like, I'll leave that up to a next date. Mm-hmm. So she gives him his number on paper, even though they both have cell phones, but it seemingly seems that they leave them at home, I guess. They don't bring them with them. This whole disconnect from electronics in a certain sense. But he loses the paper almost immediately.
Yeah, it just blows away.
It just blows away out of his pocket.
I think he pulls out a cigarette and it blows, yeah.
Yeah, he's an alcoholic. He keeps losing his jobs because he gets caught drinking on the job. It's really funny in its own right that paper just slides when he goes to grab one of his vices out of his pocket.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I've seen dry humor comedies before, but I just love this type of humor. I think it's so relatable. There's so many awkward looks. There's so much humor in the silence in this movie where these two characters are just sitting across from each other and they're just staring in the distance and they don't know what to say. One of those movies where it's seemingly nothing is happening, but so much really is happening.
It's a film that's so deliberately paced for being 81 minutes long. This was our second trip to New York. We live very close to New York, so we were attending the New York Film Festival, and we were seeing 4 films in 2 days, and we saw 3 very, very heavy films. And this was the film that we saw on our second day first, and it felt like rejuvenating in a certain way. It was just nice to see a film that was just as well made and, intelligently composed, but also just a sweet fable about humanity. And that's really what this movie is. It's almost like something you would read in a children's book, that it has these very linear kind of lessons to it that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of funny gags in this movie. The male main character's best friend has an obsession about age that's really funny. I don't want to talk about the jokes and spoil it for anybody, but that's a very funny through line throughout the film. Something I really liked is that I think the film has very evocative imagery, and when it uses symbolism, I think it uses it in a way that's, I don't want want to say obvious, but just easy to digest. So there's an early image where the alcoholic main character looks at himself in the mirror, and it's a broken mirror.
Yeah.
And it's actually a shot that made its way into the trailer of the New York Film Festival that they would show before every film. The thing I really liked about that is clearly you're looking at broken identity, right? It doesn't take that far to get there. The fact that it was a simple fable about simple people just looking for the things that we all want out of life, looking for love, looking for decent work, looking for decent living conditions. The fact that that simple symbolism was there kind of fit so nicely into the story. We always see a variety of foreign language films every year, and I think they can come with a certain complexity and a certain apprehension from the audience that perhaps they're too highbrow for them. I think this would be a really good entry point for a lot of people. This film has a very perceptible and decipherable sense of humor that's quite funny, but also the fact that it's such a simple fable and it's such a sweet story, I think could really lure in a lot of people that perhaps don't think of international films as something to go to see.
It felt very well earned and authentic to the characters and to the story. Another thing I could think about is when they first get together for dinner at her house, and she calls it a salad. I don't know if anybody got the joke because I just like laughed out loud. It was one of the moments during the movie theater where I felt myself laughing and nobody else laughing.
Well, I was because a little concerned it was like a Finnish delicacy or something that I didn't understand, but it looked disgusting.
It looked weird.
She said it was a salad, but it was a pasta dish that had...
It didn't even look like pasta to me.
It was like...
It looked like carrots, like yellow carrots.
It appeared like something, and it had hard-boiled eggs and bacon on it, and it was very strange. And it did not look appetizing at all, and it was not delicately plated and whatever.
But I'm really sure like it was meant to be played that way because she's like, we'll eat the salad while I'm cooking something, but it's just her like stirring a spoon in like a pot that you can't even see what's in there.
Well, and she occasionally just does like a little sprinkle of seasonings into it, and she calls whatever she's making a little something.
Yeah.
You know, like she doesn't even know what it is, so I do think it's part of the humor.
And there's the way that shot sat on the salad, like that made me think that there was something wrong with it.
He certainly tends to linger on things that were awkward and meant for comedy. There's a great line in here about how men are swine, but if they were actually swine, they would be sympathetic and sweet.
Oh,
and
I
smart.
love that line. That line.
Yeah, it's really funny.
So you ready to go grades?
Yeah, I give this a B+. I think it's lovely. It's definitely something I would watch again. I think it was not only a lot of fun, but it has a very sharp sense of humor. I really enjoyed the characters. I liked the fact that it was almost like a fairy tale or kind of like a fable, that it had these very simple lessons and it had this elegant structure that had these people just loving and missing and finding each other again and again. I just thought it was really sweet. And also, it has a very cute dog in it. And that's a very important part of my life. So what am I going to say?
Oh my God, the dog was so cute. We didn't even talk about the dog.
Yeah, the dog took it from a B to a B+. I mean, what were we going to say?
Well, the dog took it from me from a B+ to an A- because...
Oh, that is an A-.
I really love this movie. One of the things I loved so much about it was that you were talking about the humor and the comedy of finding each other and losing each other and the way that this narrative goes. I've seen that so many times in movies, but this felt like such a fresh take of that. It felt like it even subverted that narrative that we have seen played out multiple times because of just the way that it was handled. It felt slow and cute and funny. I didn't expect anything. I didn't know what to expect in the next scene because it just threw something against the wall that was just so outlandish in a certain way, but also so calm. It was such a calm film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely love this film, and I actually really can't wait to watch more of his movies.
That's it for a review of Fallen Leaves, which will be in theaters on the 17th of November. It will also be streaming on Mubi later this year. So however you see this film, please let us know what you think of it, and we will see you next time.